and roll, you can then grab.
Um, Boys, it's 8 p.m. starting now, and we are starting off week because there's a birthday of a man in my house. So I'll be like pausing a lot. I think, and today I thought I was gonna make it, bro. I was I thought I was gonna make a what the fuck is this it? I thought I was gonna be a div in or understand authentication, so I will give my best to learn from what I have, bro. You too, man. I learned password hashing. Fucking hell, React JS authentication. Node.js. This is it.
Hey gang, and welcome to your very first Node and Express authentication.
Get a bottle of water, huh? So web token theory. Okay, I did something to the theory, and then.
Alright then gang, so now we know a little bit more about how JWTs and cookies work together. Let's put that to good use and work on the sign-up process.
Let me see about the cookie, bro. Cookie. This is the cookie, yeah. This stores this variable false, and if we aren't importing this cookie parser, so we need to write this because set header has set cookie property mm, this value is set to this. So okay, SCT only, max is the property, SCP only. Where the fuck is that authentication? Where the fuck is the password hashing, bro? Not this. In the MongoDB, I think. Okay, user the JS in the MongoDB. So the schema. Okay, before the save happens. Oh nah. Before, like, if like if save is like save, if we click save, then this will work, work, like, and pre is the property, and post, like after post, like postpone, like after everything is done. So from the user schema is the fucking structure. So save this async, and then const salt equals to await bcrypt that generates salt. Like if my password is qwer rty curty, then provide salt give us some what the fuck character to, like, hash the password with, and longer the text, the um, protected it becomes, because if it decodes this, it will take long time, and this will be saved. Okay, hash password, this will hash the password with the salt. Okay, that's good.
So, When a user signs up in our application, we want to do two things after we get their email and password in the request. First of all, we want to hash their password and then store that user with the password in the database. The second part we need to do is we want to instantly log into the website. So the first part we've already written the code for. We hash the password in a pre-saved code using Mongoose, and then we save that document to the database. So that is done. It's the second part that we need to work on. We need to log the user in once the document is created in the database. Now to do that, remember, we create a JWT, attach it to a cookie, and then send it to the browser. And for as long as that JWT remains in the cookie untouched, the user is logged in. And we can verify that every time a user makes a new request because that cookie with the JWT is sent with it to the server. Part that we need to work on. We need to log the user in once the document is created in the database. Now to do that, remember, we create a JWT, attach it to a cookie, and then send it to the browser. And for as long as that JWT remains in the cookie untouched, the user is logged in. And we can verify that every time a user makes a new request because that cookie with the JWT is sent with it to the server. We also need to actually send the sign-up request from the front end to the server too when a user submits the form, because at the moment we're not doing that. We're just using Postman to send these requests. So let's tackle some of that in this video. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is to start sending the post requests to sign up a new user from the front end, from our web form on the website, instead of always from Postman. So we're going to do that in a second. But first of all, I just want to quickly clean up some of the code that I created a couple of lessons back when we talked about cookies, because we don't need any of this stuff at the bottom. So let's delete all of that now. But at the top, I still want to require the cookie parser, so make sure that's still there, and we still want to use it as middleware down here. So both of those remain. Okay. So now we need to hook up the front end over here so that it sends a request when we submit the form. Now the back end is already done so far. We're still handling this post request to /sign up the same, and it's all right here inside the controller. So we just need to hook it up from the front end. Now at the minute all we're doing is logging stuff to the console right here. These values that we get from the form. We don't want to do that, we want to send a request to the server instead. Now, we're going to be using the fetch API and
this fucking easy is, no, I haven't learned this, I think I won't be using this, cause of React and stuff, so this is like, not much to learn about.
Synchronous code right here. So what I'm going to do is mark this as an async function so we can use the await keyword down here. Now I'm going to place everything inside a try-catch block, so if there is some kind of error with the request, then we're going to be able to catch it right here and do something. All I'm going to do is log that to the console for now. So this is the kind of error that would occur if there's a problem with the request, if the endpoint is not correct or if there's a server error. So let's now say const result is equal to await, and we're going to await a fetch request. Now the first argument is the endpoint we want to make the request to. Now that is just /sign up. And the second argument is an options object. And in here we need to specify the method, and that is going to be a post request. So on the server it's going to know to handle a post request right here and use this controller function. So we're handling this right here. So that's the So on the server it's going to know to handle a post request right here and use this controller function. So we're handling this right here. So that's the type of request. Secondly, we need to pass along a body, and that is the data that's going along with the request. Now that needs to be the email and password that a user is trying to sign up with. Now we can't just send it as an object, we need to stringify it so it's a JSON object instead. So let's say JSON.stringify and then pass in the object. Now that object is going to have an email property, which is the email, and also the password property, which is the password. We have both of those things.
So I'm writing an essay on cats. Cats in art history. I'm an art history major, and this final is due on Friday. Same day I'm...
Up here, remember we grabbed those values from the form. Now because this and this is the same name, and this is the same name, we can shorten this to this and that does exactly the same thing. Okay, so we're passing that JSON data now as the body of this request. The last thing we need to specify right here is the headers to say that the content type is going to be JSON. So content hyphen type, and the value is going to be application forward slash JSON. So it knows that JSON is the type of data going to the server. Alright, so that's all there is to it, and we're storing the result of that right here, which we're going to do something with later on. So let's save this now and give this a whirl inside the browser. I'm going to go to forward slash sign up, and then I'm going to do something with later on. So let's save this now and give this a whirl inside the browser. I'm going to go to forward slash sign up, and then I'm going to create a new user.
No fucking hell, I didn't like...
So Mario at google.com, and I'm going to say test12 for the password. I'm going to sign up. Now, nothing really should happen here. In fact, we get a bad request. So let me just take a look over here, and I can see I've misspelled application. It should be double P, single L. Save that again. I'm going to refresh over here now and say Mario at google.com, and then test12. I'm going to sign up again, and again nothing happens, but we don't get that error now. So hopefully everything has worked, but let me just check inside the database. Again, nothing happens, but we don't get that error now. So hopefully everything has worked, but let me just check inside the database. What I'm going to do is refresh this to see now if we have a second user object. So we can see we have Mario at google.com, and the password has been hashed as well.
Bro, I need to sign in again, bro. What the I think I'm gonna address is right. Okay, cluster. Okay. That already exists, so then to valve sign up expect database Bro, it didn't update though. Bro, it didn't update. What did I do wrong, bro? Fetch sign up. Just sign up and then let's see what he does.
So the next step now is a misspelled application. So now we can't just send it as an object. Problem with the request if the endpoint is not correct or it's a certain error. So let's now say const result is equal to await, and we're going to await a fetch request. Now the first argument is the endpoint we want to request to. Now that is just / sign up, and the second argument is an option object. And in here we need to specify the method, and that is going to be a and we're going to await a fetch request. Now the first argument is the endpoint we want to request to. Now that is just / sign up. And the second argument is an option object. And in here we need to specify the method, and that is going to be a post request. So on the server it's going to know to handle a post request right here and use this controller function. So we're handling this right here. So that's the type of request. Secondly, we need to pass along a body, and that is the data that's going along with the request. Now that needs to be the
Let's check again, bro. ChatGPT, bro, there's no error though, bro. Content type header is wrong. Headers, it should be content. Missing. Okay. Application.json. Okay. Fix content type JSON. Okay, this does the trick then. ID, new object ID. Okay, what is it? Okay, let's reload it. And then what the fuck? Okay, this is the ass password. Okay, I got you, bro.
email and password that a user is trying to sign up with. Now we can't just send it as an object, we need to stringify it so it's a JSON object instead. User wants to see now if we have a second user object. So we can see we have mario@google.com and the password has been hashed as well. So the next step now is to instantly log in on the server using the JWT once all of this is done, because you haven't created a new user, but in the eyes of the server or browser terminal, we not log into the application.
So await fits from the endpoint is the URL, and the method is post and goes to authentication router, and then post is done. Let me ask him, bro. He is him, bro. Bro, it's the same thing though. But front end to back end, when you write sign up, send a post request. For example, if you run them, sign up, yeah, we're gonna do this the direct route. You must write fetch auth. Okay. And the JS auth router, then sign up. Okay, remember right, fetch must watch base plus router path. If use is correct, do this. In your app.js, look for something like some router quick. Okay, bro, I'm gonna go dinner, so I will be in a. But it was the damn phone, bro.
On the server using a JWT once all of this is done, because yeah, we've created a new user, but in the eyes of the server or the browser at the minute, we're not logged into the application. We don't have a JWT. So first let's install a package that we're going to use to create JWTs. So let me open up the terminal and open up a new terminal, in fact, and I'm going to say npm install, and it's JSON web token, no spaces, and install that. And make sure it goes to your package.json dependencies over here. Alright, so now inside the auth controller, I'm going to require that at the top. So let me just paste this in. So const JWT equals require JSON web token. So we're going to use this to create our JSON web tokens. Now, where do we need to create a JSON web token? Well, right here, after we create a new user. Once this is done and it's successful, then we need to create a JSON web token so we can send it back to the browser in a cookie to say, hey, this user is logged in. Then any subsequent requests we get, it's going to send along that cookie to the server with that JWT, and we can verify it. So,
what the fuck was that name?
To say, JSON web tokens. JSON web. Where do we new user? Once this is done and it's successful, then we need to create a JSON web token so we can send it back.
JSON web token.
JSON web.
Okay, I fucking downloaded the wrong thing then. No, I didn't. Hey, alright,
no spaces, and install that. And make sure it goes to your package.json dependencies over here. Alright, so now inside the auth controller, I'm going to require that at the top. So let me just paste this in. So const JWT equals require JSON web token.
Okay,
so we're going to use this to create our JSON web tokens. Okay. Now, where do we need to create a JSON web token? Well, right here, after we create a new user. Once this is done and it's successful, then we need to create a JSON web token so we can send it back to the browser in a cookie to say, hey, this user is logged in. Then any subsequent requests we get, it's going to send along that cookie to the server with that JWT, and we can verify it. So then, all we'll concern ourselves with at the minute is creating and sending a JSON web token. Now, I'm not going to do all of the code for that right here because we're going to use it down here as well when we log in, and we don't want to repeat our code over and over. Instead, I'll do this in a separate function up here. So, just below the errors function, I'm going to create a second function, and that's going to be called create token. So const, and then create token is equal to a function. Now inside this function we're going to pass in an ID, and that is going to be used inside the payload of the JSON web token. Now the ID is going to come from
Hi, my name is Bruno Breezy.
This thing down here, where we have the user, because this is the user that's just been saved to the database, and remember, on that we get... Okay. Now, I'm not going to do all of the code for that right here, because we're going to use it down here as well when we log in, and we don't want to repeat our code over and over. Instead, I'll do this in a separate function up here. So, just below the errors function, I'm going to create a second function, and that's going to be called create token. So const, and then create token is equal to a function. Now inside this function, we're going to pass in an ID, and that is going to be used inside the payload of the JSON web token. Now the ID is going to come
Payload of the JSON web token. Fuck.
This thing down here, where we have the user, because this is the user that's just been saved to the database, and remember, on that we get an ID property, and we can see that right here, this ID, okay? So we're going to use that inside the payload, and when we call that function down here, we'll pass it in so it receives it. Okay, so we have the ID, now we want to create the JSON web token, and we actually want to return this as well, so when we call this function, it's returning a value to us. So I'm going to return JWT, which is the thing we just required at the top over here, and then on that we use a method called sign. So I'm going to return JWT, which is the thing we just required at the top over here, and then on that we use a method called sign. So I'm going to use the sign method to sign our JWT. Now the first thing we do is pass in the payload. So that is going to be the ID property inside this object right here. So it's an object with the ID property that we pass it. That's all it is. Second argument is going to be a secret. So this should be something that's secret to the application. You don't publish it anywhere on any kind of public repository, right? And it should be long instead of this short one that I'm going to do, because I'm just going to say netninja secret like so. But that is our string secret, and that's what our payload and headers are going to be hashed with to create this. Use a method called sign. So I'm going to use the sign method to sign our JWT. Now the first thing we do is pass in the payload. So that is going to be the ID property inside this object right here. So it's an object with the ID property that we pass it.
What the fuck am I spelling?
Second argument is going to be a secret. So this should be something that's secret to the application. You don't publish it anywhere on any kind of public repository, right? And it should be long instead of this short one that I'm going to do, because I'm just going to say netninja secret like so. But that is our string secret, and that's what our payload and headers are going to be hashed with to create this signature. So after that, we need to also pass a third argument, which is an options object, and basically in here we can set the expires in property. So this is a bit like a cookie. We're saying how long is this JWT going to be valid for? If we want to set it to be valid for 3 days, then even if the user has that JWT in their browser after 3 days and sends it to the server on a request, it's not going to be valid anymore, and we won't see them as being logged in. So what I'm going to do is actually create a constant to store some kind of max age in, because we'll reuse this later on. So const max age, and that's going to be equal to 3 for 3 days, times 24 for hours, times 60 for minutes, and then times 60 for seconds. Now, this is a value of 3 days in seconds, because this expects a time in seconds, unlike a cookie, which expects a time in milliseconds. So I know that can be quite confusing, but this is in seconds now, 3 days. And that's how long this JWT will remain valid for. Okay, so now we have a function which is creating a token for us and returning it. This thing right here returns us a token with a signature. The headers automatically get applied, right? So we have our payload, the secret that we're using to sign the token, and the headers are automatically applied. This creates the token for us. That's all there is to it. So now we can use this function down here after we create a new user, because at this point we want to log the user in instantaneously. So I'm going to say const token is equal to create token.
So JWT signs this ID with us. What the fuck? The JSON that. Wait the fuck up, bro. important, like if you really understand the stop feeling magical and start feeling logical. Line is this line is creating a web token and returning it. A JWT is basically a digital identity card for the user. After login, you give this to the user so they can prove who they are. JWT does sign create a token. uh, what is a payload, bro? A part of a vehicle in ICT. Payload. hmm. Programming, bro. What the fuck is that? Payload, bro. The actual meaningful data transmitted in a message or packet, including overhead data like header, metadata, or routing information. Payload. Secret key option. Secret key option. Okay, extra features. Take some data blocks, say example output. Okay, this gets stored in a cookie or local storage. ID payload. Okay, sort and put the user ID inside the token, so the token contains. Okay, or return create token. Okay, do not put here ever. Only save info, ID, email, role, secret key, a password for JSON. Think of it like a password for JSON. Only your server knows this key when user sends token back. Token secret was the in real life never hardcode this use .env. Yeah, I get it. Expiration date. Create a full meaning in simple English. Create a secure login token that contains the user ID. Log it with my secret key. Make it available for 3 days. Okay, interest. Fuck you, bruh. You ain't my fucking coach, bruh. You just my helper, bruh.
Okay. And we're going to pass in the user ID that we have. So, don't forget, we get the user back from the database when it creates that new user.
So, create token. Okay, I got you. Create token. I need, like, login post. Where the fuck is you, bro? Sign up. Okay, I got you. No, const. Before that, bro. Cause like status. Okay, const token equals to create token bracket of the ID. How the fuck should I take the ID, bro?
So we can pass in user dot, and we access the ID property by saying underscore ID, and that's this thing over here. If we take a look, underscore ID. Okay. So we're passing that thing in now. It creates a token for us, and it returns it, so we have it stored here. The next thing we need to do is then place that inside a cookie and send that as part of the response, right? So let's do that now. I'm going to say response.cookie to set a cookie, and this is.
Wait the fuck up, bro. I need to understand some shit, bro. Cause life is hard, bro. Oh, dang, what the fuck? How the fuck are they supposed to decode all of this, bro? Dang, bro. Duplicate key. Okay. 1, 2, 3, bro. Created. Okay, Aaron Godras. And password is this stuff, and ID becomes this, and JSON web token becomes this. Expiring Return. Okay, what the fuck?
It's going to be called JWT. So that's what we're.
Response to set a cookie, bro. Set a cookie of token. So I wanna see. This is like fucking magical. Yeah, 50 on. That's kinda important, bro. Okay, inspect application cookie JSON web token. Cookie with the fuck did we input that? We didn't input. No, comma what the fuck, negative http only true. SEC very secure true. Okay, save. Okay, why the fuck am I using my real okay, I'm gonna refresh that in a second. So undefined file path HTTPS only secure no. So what the fuck secure, like is this like without it? Nah.
Calling the cookie, you can call it what you want, even that, but it makes no sense. I'm going to call it JWT because that's what this cookie is for. And then we need to say that the value of this is going to be the token. Now after that, I'm going to pass through the options object again to say this is going to be HTTP only, so we can't access and change it or do anything with it from the front-end JavaScript code. So that's going to be set to true. And also, I'm going to give this a max age because we gave our JWT a max age as well, and I want this to be 3 days as well. So the cookie is going to expire after 3 days as well as the JWT. So I can take the max age variable, but remember this is in seconds, so I need to times this by 1000 for it to be 3 days. Okay, so we're sending that cookie now, and also we're sending this response, but instead of sending the whole user, which contains the hash...
A minute, no, into 6 minutes, into 60 seconds. So let's make it 3 days for me also, but completely optional. But sign up and then inspect HTTP only secure. How the fuck am I supposed to secure this, bro? Like anyone can look it up, bro, but it's hash though, so nobody can find it. Comma secure true. What the fuck is that? So let's sign up. So what is this? Secure, bro, I can see this. ChatGPT, from what you say, I made a cookie, but I did inspect and see the value sent in application, then in cookie folder. Here dev tool application AWS is working, big milestone. What happened behind? Bro, I don't need that, bro. Oh, I have to fucking long chorus, but I don't get chorus errors, bro. Without doing anything. Same site, strict.
Password and all that kind of jazz. Instead, let's just send the user ID. So, let's say user is going to be user._ID. Remember, we get access to that right here, and this is the ID property. So we're just sending that back as a response, as well as the cookie, to the front end. Okay, so then,
Why sending this to the front end, bro? User dot that's ID, cause MongoDB is using that shit.
let's try this out. This is the moment of truth. Let's go over here, and refresh over here, and create a new user. So I'm going to call this one Yoshi at google.com, and then test one, two. So let's sign, and then hopefully we'll see a response over here, which is the user ID. In fact, we might see that because we don't log anything to the console on the front end, but we will see inside our applications tab that we should have a JWT token once we do this. So let's sign up, and let's then see over here, we see that JWT token is created.
Yes,
so over here, we can see we have an expired date, and also we have HTTP only, so we can access it from the front end, and also this is the token right here. So now in the future, every request we make for pages on this website, that cookie with that JWT is going to be sent to the server. So then the server can later on use it to verify the user is logged in. So next up, we're going to finish off the front end process by handling errors and redirecting the user after signing up. So we've kind of done the sign up process in the...
I don't really want to, like, it's good that I'm learning front end while doing this stuff, but what the fuck is he using, bro? EasyS, bro? What?
This data, when we click sign up, is sent to the server in a post request. We handle that by hashing the password, first of all, then saving the user to a database. Once that's successfully done, we create a JSON Web Token, put it in a cookie, and send it to the user, and that's what we have right here every time we sign up. So it's automatically logging us in by giving us this JWT. Now, at the minute, that concept doesn't really mean much because we're not doing anything with this JSON Web Token beyond this. Ultimately, this is going to get sent to the server for every request that we make to a different page or something like that, and we can verify that later on. But for now, let's just move on and handle the errors on the front end over here, because sometimes if we enter in something like Yoshi at, which isn't a valid email and password, which is 4 characters long, then there are errors, and we handle those errors on the server. We can take a look at that. We have this function right here. So up here, this is where all the errors are handled. We create this errors object, and then ultimately we send that back to the user as JSON. Okay, so we need to see if in the response we get either the errors, in which case we need to show them to the user, or if we get this user property in the response, that means it's a success, and we can then maybe redirect them to the homepage instead of showing any kind of errors. So I hope that makes sense. That's what we're going to do. So that means it's a success, and we can then maybe redirect them to the homepage. So over here, we get the results when we make this effect request, and we can check this result to see what's inside it. So we can say, first of all, that the const data is equal to the response.json. So this response right here, to get the data out of it, we need to use the JSON method. Now, this in itself is asynchronous, so we're going to say await. In front of it right there, and then this data
what the fuck is
will be the object that we send back over here, either this thing or this thing, alright?
Okay.
So now we can check inside that data object. First of all, I'm just going to log it to the console.log data. Now then, if I go to the front end now and refresh first of all to catch those changes, if I try to sign up with something like Luigi at google.com, that user shouldn't exist yet, and test1, 2, this should work, and we should get back the user ID inside the response. So let's sign up, and yeah, we get that user ID right here, so that was a success.
What the fuck? Sign up. I need to get the ID. Console.log. Okay. Okay. Angle authorized JD. Is it the same shit? Oh, bro, this didn't work then.
That data object. First of all, I'm just going to log it to the console.log data. Now then, if I go to the front end now and refresh first of all to catch those changes, if I try
save this shit. Cut. Errors. This email is already registered. How the fuck did we get that? Oh, fucking hell. Where the fuck was we? We was here, and then await response the JSON. Okay, B, then sign up, and then okay, QW30 UI, and then is this the magic of this? Save. Okay, sign up. So where the fuck? This is good. So what I sent was an ID, not the full body. Create token of user. I think this will be, but that worked though. What the fuck? Create token user dot ID. So in fucking new Mongo we don't need this. So jbs@gmail.com. Cody, bro. Sign up. What the fuck? Didn't I save? Save. Not have this JSON here. Console log. Save. gbs@gmail.com, but key.e, where my hand slip. Ha ha ha. I'm too funny. Okay, for this,
Try to sign up with something like Luigi at google.com. That user shouldn't exist yet, and test 1, 2. This should work, and we should get back the user ID inside the response. So let's sign up, and yep, we get.
But what the fuck is this? So one thing I'm confused about is in the backend I send a response status 201 and JSON and stuff for most of them, and the response is fucking caught by a response.json in EJS, like like const data equals to await response.json brackets. So await the fuck. So response.json has what we send to the fucking like Thunder client or stuff. So is that it? Example send what did cons response equals to await fetch sign up const data await response.json. Take whatever JSON the okay, I got you.
Get that user ID right here. So that was a success. Now, what if I try to...
Wait. So, example console log user, what back and send. What the fuck? So, example JSON. Oh, then
sign up with the same user again. Well, let's try it. This time we get errors. So that email is already registered, and for the password it should be empty because this is still fine. Now again, I could say something like Luigi, which isn't a valid email, and it says right here, please enter a valid email. If I take 2 off the password, we should get a password error as well, and that says minimum password length is 6 characters. So when there's an error, we're getting those errors back. When it's a success, we're getting the user back. So we can check for the presence of this error's property, and if there is an error, we can do something. So let us now, down here, say if, and then data.errors. So if that exists, it's going to be truthy, and we'll do...
Truthy. Okay, truthy. If that's going to be truthy, to sign up again, and it's going to get duplicate, and then it send an object with error, and object means like fucking curly bracket and stuff. So errors, example, this is already registered. Okay, error, email or password. Okay.
And what do we want to do in here? We want to output the errors. And we want to output them in this field if there's an email error and this one if there's a password. So first of all, we need to grab those from the DOM. So let me say const email error, we'll call this, and set it equal to, if that exists, it's going to be truthy and we'll do something. And what do we want to do in here? We want to output the errors. And we want to output them in... And what do we want to do in here? We want to output the errors. And we want to output them in this field if there's an email error and this one if there's a password. So first of all, we need to grab those from the DOM. So let me say const email error, we'll call this, and set it equal to documents.querySelector. And we want the .email.error class. So that's grabbing this div right here. Now I'm going to duplicate that, and this time I'm going to call it password error.
Equals to document the query selector, the email, the error for the copy paste error, password error,
and this time we want the password error div. Alright, so we've got both of those now, and if there's errors, we just want to populate that. We want to change the text content of each one. So I'm going to say that the email error div dot text content is equal to the data that we get back dot errors, because we know we have that errors property now because we did new check, dot email. Now that email property and the password property are always going to exist. Sometimes it might be that email property and the password property are always going to exist. Sometimes it might be empty like this, but it's always going to exist. If it is empty, it's basically just going to update the content to be an empty string. So therefore we're not showing any kind of error. If there is an error in there, then it's going to update it with the error itself. Okay? Now I want to do the same thing for the password, so let me say password error as well, dot text content, and set that equal to data dot errors dot password, and that's all there is to it. Okay, now I also want to reset the errors every time that we submit, so that if we get an error, for example, and in fact let me demo this, let me demo it. So if I refresh over here and I type in Luigi and just 1, 2, 3 right here, if reset the errors every time that we submit, so that if we get an error, for example, and in fact let me demo this, let me demo it. So if I refresh over here and I type in Luigi and just 1, 2, 3 right here, if I sign up, we get those errors now, right? They're being populated with whatever is...
Okay, that's cool, bro. Bro, save, password error in the text content of that fucking shit. So reload the thing. Okay, fucking anything. So is already registered. Nice, bro. I love this shit, bro.
On this errors object. Now if I update this to be something valid and press sign again, while that request is going on, I don't want to show this error anymore, so I want to clear out the errors every time we click sign up, and then if we get errors back, we're going to populate them again. So let's clear them out every time we submit the form, which is up here. So I'm going to say right here, reset errors, and then underneath that I'm going to paste this in, and I'm just going to change this to be an empty. and then underneath
Prevent. So why the fuck did he do this, bro? What the fuck?
that I'm going to paste this in.
Oh,
I'm just going to change this to be an empty string for each one. And that's all I'm going to do. So we're taking out the current errors every time we click submit. Alright, so that's that sorted. If there's errors, we show them. Now then, let's try this by... That's that sorted. If there's errors, we show them. Now then, let's try this by saying Luigi at google.com. In fact, we need to refresh first of all. I'm going to say Luigi right here and 1, 2, 3. Get those errors. Now, if we try to update this to something that's valid...
Save that, and so... reload the thing. And go to QWE. So, minimum... Sign up, bro. What the fuck? Bro, this ain't valid too, bro. What the fuck? What the fuck you looking at? AW. Arun. Got trust at the rate gmail.com. So it operates. Okay.
Then we can sign up again, and notice this one now goes. Alright, so I can say right here instead test 1, 2, 3 and sign up. And actually,
one question that has been lingering, so I prefer React over EJS. Ain't that the same thing though? In the wrong that prefer React over right now is helping you learn things, so don't drop it yet. Is doing for you server side rendering your flow right now. Browser Express. What React is different world. Browser React app API JSON React Node.js.
this email is already...
Bro, is it EJS? Bro, this thing. EJS.
registered. So, let's say Luigi1 at google.com and sign up, and now it's valid and we get this user back. Awesome. Okay, so now what we can do is, instead of detecting the errors, we can detect if there's a user property, and if there is, we can redirect them to the home page after they've signed up. So let us do that below this if check right here, and I'm going to say if, and inside parentheses data.user, so we're checking for the presence of that user property now, and we can say location.assign. This is how we can redirect from the front end, and we're going to say to just / so that will do a redirect to just / and it will request a home page from the server. So let's give this a whirl again. I'm going to, and it will request a home page right here, and I'm going to say if, and inside parentheses data.user, so we're checking for the presence of that user property now, and we can say location.assign. This is how we can redirect from the front end, and we're going to say to just / so that will do a redirect to just / and it will request a home page from the server. So let's give this a whirl again. I'm going to change this to, in fact, we need to refresh to catch the changes. Then I'll do toad at google.com and test 1, 2, 3 and sign up. And yeah, we get redirected to the home page. 2, 3.
Save, reload. Fucking. Okay, never, bro. That ain't helping me, bro. Okay, that's fucking.
And sign up.
Easy, yes. I fucking love this, bro. For like normal shit. Look at this, bro. Login, easy, yes. Sign up. This is the same shit, bro. Smoothie. Okay, include partial header. The easiest. Okay, this is fucking normal ass shit, bro. What the fuck? Partial header / include. Okay, this is so normal.
And yeah, we get redirected to the home page. Awesome. Alright, so everything's kind of working out for the sign up process. Next, we're going to turn our attention to the login screen.
Login screen, okay.
Alright then, gang. So,
Alright then, gang. Pop. Gob. Fucking conditional rendering. What the fuck is that, bro? Checking the user.
but now we've pretty much done the sign up process, whereby we enter in a new email and password with sign up. That sends those credentials to the server. The server then takes those and it stores them as a user object in the database. Once we've done that, we then instantly log that user in by creating a JSON Web Token, sending it back to the browser inside a cookie, and we can see that JSON Web token if we go to application right here. Okay, so as long as we have this and it's not been tampered with in the browser, then we're considered logged in, and that gets sent to the server for every request we make thereafter. Now, we've not handled this on the server yet. When we make those requests to do things like only allow access to logged in users to certain pages, but we'll see all of that later on. For now, what I want to do is quickly switch our focus to the login screen so we can do something similar. So if we go to /login, that looks something like this. So I want to now make this send a request to the server with the credentials we enter in here to log the user in. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we need to flesh out the front end over here to make that request. But then once we do, on the server, we want to take these credentials and then we want to look for that user with that email in the database. Once we've got that user, we want to compare hashed passwords. So we take the password they try to log in with and we hash it, and we compare it with the hashed password stored in the database for the user with that email. If they match, it means the password is correct, and we can log them in and create that JSON Web Token for them and send it back to the browser. If it's incorrect, if they don't match, then it means we don't log them in and we send back some kind of error to the user, like incorrect password or something like that, okay? Now the first step is to flesh out all of the JavaScript for the front end so we can send the request when we click login. Now this is going to be almost identical to all of this inside the sign up page. So what I'm going to do is actually just grab everything inside this event listener. So let me grab all of this right here and copy it. Then I'm going to go over to the login.ejs page. I'm going to take all of this and delete it. And then I'm going to paste the JS page.
Why the fuck?
The sign up page. So what I'm going to do is actually just grab everything inside this event listener. So let me grab all of this right here and copy it. Then I'm going to go over to the login.ejs page. I'm going to take all of this and delete it. And then I'm going to paste in all of this stuff right here. So, it. And then I'm going to .ejs page. I'm going to take all of this and delete it. And then I'm going to paste in all of this stuff right here. So, when we submit this now, we are first of all setting the text content of the email error and the password error to be blank. We do that every time we make a request, and I forgot we need to grab those from the DOM and store them up here like we did in sign up. So let me copy those as well. Grab them and paste them right here. So these two things.
Okay, that's good. That's not this. Query select forum.
Things are this and this, right? So we're emptying those out every time we try to submit some new data. Then what we do is we grab the values from the inputs. Then we try this thing right here, where we're using the fetch API to send a push request to currently sign up. But we want to change this to login, right? Because we're sending to currently sign up. But we want to change this to login, right? Because we're sending a request to the login endpoint instead this time. Now the method is still post. The body that we're sending is the JSON.stringify version of these two things right here, the email and password, which we grab from the inputs. Then we get a response, and we pass that JSON into a JavaScript object called data, which we can use. We're logging that to the console. If there's errors, we're outputting those. If there's a valid user, then we're relocating them to
16 minutes though.
The home page. Now, if this fails, if there's some kind of error with this endpoint, then we're going to catch that error right here. Okay? So that's all working on the front end, but inside the auth controller over here, where we handle this post request to /login, all we're doing is grabbing the request body, we're logging out this email password, and we're sending back this text response. Now, we don't want best to /login. All we're doing is grabbing the where we handle this post request to /login. All we're doing is grabbing the request body, we're logging out this email password, and we're sending back this text response. Now we don't want to do that. We want to do a bit more in here. What we want to do is take the user with this email and password, and we want to try and log them in. We want to basically take those and compare them with the email and password in the database, and then create a JSON.
7 minutes, 11 minutes. I think we can do it.
In web token. Now, it would be nice if we could do something here, like take the user model and do something like this, log in and pass in the email and password. Now, we can't do that. Mongoose doesn't come with the ability to log in users for us. We have to create this method ourselves. But we can do that. We can create this static method on a model when we create a model. So I'm going to show you how to do that. The first thing we need to do is open up the user model over here, and we're going to create open up the user model over here, and we're going to create a static method on this user model. So let me do this comment first of all, static method to login user, and then we take our user schema, and we can say dot statics, and then dot whatever we want to call this static method. Now I'm going to create a method called login on this user model. So we set this equal to a function, and it's going to be an asynchronous function because there will be asynchronous code inside it. So async, and then function, and we're going to take in the email and password when we call this function. So inside this function, the first thing I want to do is I want to take this email, and then I want to look inside our database for a user which might have that email and find that document. So let me say const user is equal to await, because this is going to be asynchronous. And inside this static method, we can refer to this to be the user model itself. So not the instance, we don't have an instance, we have the user model. It would be like saying await user. But we're using this to refer to the user model. Then we can use a method called find one on that to go out and try and find one record or one document inside the user's collection in the database. Now we want to base that on the email. So we'll pass in an object and specify the email of this document we're trying to find must be the email we pass in. Now because this name and this name are the same, we can shorten this to just email. So this right here, if it finds this user right here, then it will return that user and place it inside this constant. If it doesn't, then it's going to be undefined. So what we want to do then is check, do we have a user? Because if we do have a user, at that point we want to compare the passwords to make sure the password a user enters in on the login screen is the same as the one stored in the database. Now, if we don't have the user, it means that email does not exist inside the database collection, so therefore we're going to send some kind of error back eventually to the user that says, look, this email is not a registered email. So at this point we want to check, does this user exist? So if user, right? Now if it does exist, at that point we want to compare the passwords. But if it doesn't exist, then we want to throw some kind of error. So I'm going to, outside here, say throw, and then an error to throw an error. Oops, not an element. Error. And that error is going to have a message, and it's going to be incorrect email, right? So
This is your brain when you're struggling with focus. And this is your brain when you're in the zone. But
if the user exists, we're going to do something in here and then eventually return so it never gets to this point. If it doesn't exist, it's going to bypass the code inside this block and instead throw an error. And later on, we're going to handle that error over in our auth controller where we handled the other. And later on, we're going to handle that error over in our auth controller where we handled the other errors at the top. All right? So inside here, if we know there is a user, the next thing we want to do is compare those passwords. Now, how are we going to do this? Because the password that a user enters in is the text password, but the one in the database is the hashed password. We need to compare the hashed password, so we need to hash this as well, and then compare it to the hashed password stored in the database. So what we can do is use the bcrypt library or bcrypt package to do this. Remember, we installed that and required it up here, and we used that to generate salt and hash the password earlier on. Now we're going to use a method on this to compare hashed passwords. So all we need to do is say bcrypt and then dot compare. And this compare method takes in two arguments. First of all, the password that's not yet hashed. Alright, so that's the password that the user has entered. And then what we're going to do is say user dot password. So when we get a user back from the database, we have the hashed password on that, and that is in the password property, right? Because we're storing that. If we go to the database, we can see this password property right here, and it's the hashed password. So we're comparing the password that the user signs in with, or logs in with the password, the hashed password stored in the database. Now, it doesn't matter that this isn't hashed because bcrypt is going to do all of that under the hood for us. It's going to hash it and compare hashed passwords for us. Now, this is asynchronous, so I'm going to say await in front of this and assign the result inside a variable called auth. Alright? Now, this will be truthy if this passes and false if it doesn't pass. So, we can say if auth right here. And if that's true, it means the passwords have matched, and at that point I'm going to return the user. So whenever we call this in the future, if everything's successful, if they found the email and the password match, then we're going to return the user. And we'll know at that point, look, we've got a user, they've entered the correct credentials, so we can log them in and create that JWT for them. Now, if they don't, at this point, if it gets to here, and this is false, it means the passwords are not correct, and so what we need to do is throw an error instead at this point. So the error I want to throw here is incorrect password, alright? So I hope this makes sense. First, we make sure that email exists, so it checks for a user with that email inside the database. Then, if it is an email inside the database, we try to authenticate them by comparing the passwords. So if that's true, then we return the user. If this is not true, then we return this error, or we throw this error. Now, if this user didn't even exist in the first place, then we throw this error, alright? So, we created first, if it checks for a user with that email inside the database, then if it is an email inside the database, we try to authenticate them by comparing the passwords. So if that's true, then we return the user. If this is not true, then we return this error, or we throw this error. Now, if this user didn't even exist in the first place, then we throw this error, alright? So, we created this thing right here. The next thing to do is to use that inside our auth controller, down here, inside the login post method. So I'm going to get rid of a lot of this right here, and like above, when we try to sign up, I'm going to embed this in a try and catch block. So if there is an error, then it's going to throw the error, and we can catch it. So, you know, like we threw errors over here, if when we call this function over here, the login function, inside the try block, if there's an error and it throws one of these errors over here, then we're going to be able to catch that right here. And then we can handle it accordingly. Okay, for now...
Wait the fuck up, user model schema.
All I'm doing inside here is going to say response.state.
Oh, what the fuck is this? Model name by a table. I'm creating a model name. Okay. User.
status, and 400 to say this is not a success, and then a JSON, and we're just going to send back an empty object. Later we'll populate this with errors. Alright, so what are we actually going to try? Well, we're going to try to log in. So I'm going to say const user is equal to await, and this needs to be asynchronous, this function, in order to do this. Then we're going to grab the user model, which we have already imported into this file. Then we're going to grab the user model, which we have already imported into this file at the top, so we can use it. And we're going to use that static method we just created, and that was called login. So I can log in now and pass in the email and password that they entered and we grab from the request body. So email and password, right? So what's going to get stored inside this user? Well, if it's successful, then it's going to be the user that we grab, because we tried to do it right here. If it's successful, then it's going to be the user that we grab, because we tried to do it right here. We grab the user. If there's a user, we compare the passwords. If they match, then we're returning that user. The only case where we don't return a user, these two cases, we're going to throw an error, and instead we're going to fire this task right here to handle that error. So at this point, we should have the user if this passes. So then we can do something with that user. Eventually, we're going to create a JSON web token for that user and send that back in a cookie. But for now, let's just say response.status is going to be 200, meaning everything okay. And then send back some JSON. And inside here, let's send back the user ID. So I can say user._ID. Alright, so that's from this thing right here that's come from the database, much like we did up here. So that grab
email and password. Compare.
grab from user JSON, and inside here, let's send back the user ID. So I can say user._ID. Alright, so that's from this thing right here that's come from the database, much like we did up here. So that grabs us this ID property. Alright, so we're sending that back to the browser now. So that's from this thing right here that's come from the database, much like we did up here. So that grabs us
Fucking hell, I can see my own mongoose, bro. This folder.
this ID property. Alright? So we're sending that back to the browser now. If this is a success and we have that user, if it's not a success, then we're going to send this back because we catch an error and then just send back a blank JSON object. Alright? Phew! So let's give this a whirl. Let's save that, cross our fingers, and hope everything works. Let's give this a whirl. Let's save that, cross our fingers, and hope everything works. So what I'm going to do is just enter in an email. In fact, I'm going to refresh first because we made some changes to the front end, and I want to capture those changes as well. We have an error over here. Await is only valid in an asynchronous function. Okay, so on the front end, if we go to the login screen, we're using await right here and await right here, but await is only valid in an asynchronous function. Okay, so on the front end, if we go to the login screen, we're using await right here and await right here, but the function itself is not asynchronous. So let me put async in front of that and save it.
I did that.
Okay, so now let's refresh and try this again. Okay, no errors. Right then, so let's keep the console open and try to log in. I need to check what we have as a user over here. Alright, so I'm going to try to log in as Mario. So Mario at google.com. The trouble is, I can't remember the password I used. Let's try test 1, 2. Log in. And yeah, did you see that user? We got that user, but then it redirected us straight away to the homepage. Let me just take off that
What the fuck? Login sign up? What the fuck?
redirect from the front end. Okay, so we can see that. Okay, this is the redirect. I'm commenting that out and send update. Did you see that user? We got that user at google.com. The trouble is I can't.
Query, fine. You are querying with the password wrong in mobile euro. Why? Because in sign up you has the password will be crypt. So in database password look like this, not 1 2 3. Fix find by email. Only change this. Wait. Okay, here is empty. From big compare because you search with email password before it never reaches you. So my name is Jeff at the gmail.com. QWE123. Sign up. Okay. Slash login. Email. What the fuck is the email? Jeff at gmail.com. Password QWE123. Bad request. log the error. Hmm.
Remember the password I used. Let's try test 1, 2. Log in, and yeah, did you see that user? We got that user, but then it redirects us straight away to the homepage. Let me just take off that redirect from the front end over here so we can see that. Okay, this is the redirect. I'm commenting that out, and I'm going to go back over here and refresh. And try that again. Mario at google.com and test 1, 2. Alright, try to log in and we get that user. So now we've successfully logged in. We've not sent them a JWT yet. And by the way, we still have this one from earlier as well. But don't worry, we'll handle all of this later on. But this has been a success. It's obviously found that user, compared the hash passwords, and decided everything's fine, and it's sent us the user back. Alright? Now then, what if there's an error? What if I try to log in with something that doesn't exist, like Mario 1? Well, I get this empty object back, which is what we send back if there is an error. We can see that right here inside the controller. Now, the same is true if we have the right email, but we change the password to something that is incorrect. Try to log in, and again, we get back an error. Alright? So that's the first step of this login process done. We've now sent the request from the front end over here. We've handled that over here by using the static method login that we created on the Mongoose model right here by saying user schema. Which is what we called our schema at the top, and then we said .statics to access the statics methods, and
What the fuck?
then we attached this login method to it. This was an asynchronous function, did all of this check for us, compare the passwords, etc., and either throws an error or returns a user. And then we either send back this response, the user ID, if this was a success, or a blank object if there was some kind of error. So that's the first step done. The next thing we need to do in the next video is to, first of all, handle the error a little bit better, so we can send that back to the front end. And then secondly, we need to also actually log the user in by creating a JSON web token for them and sending it to the browser. So we'll do that in the next video. Alright then gang, so we're halfway through this login process now, but we need to do two more things. First of all, we need to handle the errors better when a user enters in incorrect credentials, like their email's wrong or the password's wrong, because currently all we're doing is sending back this blank JSON object, and that's ridiculous. gives the user no helpful information at all. So we're going to handle those in a minute inside this function at the top that we created earlier called handle errors. So we'll do that in a second. The other thing we need to do is, if this is a success, the passwords match, the emails match, and they are logged in, we need to then create a JSON web token to put in a cookie and send to the browser to say, hey, yes, they are logged in, and for as long as they've got this JWT, they are logged in. So we're going to do that first of all. So remember, we created this function at the top right here, create token, to create a token. And we used that down here inside the sign up handler to create a token. So we're going to do pretty much the same thing. We create the token here by passing in the user ID, and then we put that token inside a cookie. We set HTTP only to true and max age to be the max age variable we had times 1,000 to put it into milliseconds, and that is 3 days. And the max age came from up here, right? So that's 3 days. Okay, so all we need to do is grab these two things like this, copy those, and paste them right down here. So the token is created by using the user that we have, ID, and then we create the cookie with that JWT. Them right down here. So that's 3 days. Okay, so all we need to do is grab these two
and the
things
terminal
like this, copy those, and paste them right down here. So the token is created by using the user that we have, ID, and then we create the cookie with that JWT. Then we send back as JSON the user ID. All right, so the cookie is being set, and we're sending back a JSON user. Awesome. So that bit's done. Now we need to just handle the errors better. So remember, over here inside the user model, we throw errors better. So remember, over here inside the user model, we throw these two errors, and these are the error messages. So you know, like up here inside the error handler, this function, we log out error.message. That is going to be these messages right here, and I'm going to demo that. First of all, let me say inside the error handler, this function, we log out error.message. That is going to be these messages right here, and I'm going to demo that. Up here inside the, and these are the error messages. So you know, like up here inside the error handler, this function, we log out error.message. That is going to be these messages right here, and I'm going to demo that. First of all, let me save this, and then let's open this up so we can see it and go to this one over here where we're running the application. And if we come over here and try to log in with something invalid, so that's not a correct email, log in, then we should over here in a second see that error message logged to the console. In fact, no we don't, because stupidly we have not called that method down here.
protecting row, user logout. Oh dang, bro. This got harder. Think I should start the fucking ass project so I understand. I'm like fucking tired. I want to do this today. So alright boys, so it's sleep time, bro. So bye.